Police are bureaucrats with weapons. David Graeber, American anthropologist and anarchist activist. All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. For tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right. So, we're going to talk about another police shooting. It's time once again to Monday morning quarterback, except for it's what, Wednesday? But we'll do it on Wednesday, and that's fine. Now, I want to just kind of set the stage here. I am not a cab. And if you're not familiar with that, that's ACAB. All cops are bastards. It's not me. I'm also not a back the blue. I am but a mere critic, and I think a fair one. I'm also not a lawyer. So this is all just opinion. I'm a regular, everyday, average citizen. So what happened? Well, let me show you this internet clip that's going around about a shooting in Springfield, Illinois. Now, what I've done is I have clipped the very end where the shooting actually occurs, uh, just because I want to try to keep this show as family friendly as possible. So, but you'll understand. I mean, it's a shooting; it happened. So we're just gonna leave that particular part out, and then we're gonna talk about it. So I'm gonna play this clip. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's play the clip. I'm trying to think of the order that I want to do some because I've got a couple stories that I want to tell you, personal stories that I think are very, very relevant to this particular incident. So let's play this clip and then we'll just kind of talk about some points of interest. And then after that, I'm going to get into some of my stories and then I'm going to give you some opinion that I have on this particular situation. So let's watch the first clip here that we have and let's see what exactly transpired. If we can get it up. Look at it. There's nobody there. Where am I? Oh no.
Do you have an ID? That'd make things so much easier. I just get just driver's license will do, and then I'll get out of your hair.
I want to show y'all my paperwork.
I will get your paperwork.
What paperwork?
I got your paperwork.
Well, just get your ID.
Well, let's get your ID first, and then
one task at a time here.
Okay.
Here, grab your ID for me.
Okay.
Your ID, one task at a time. So let's do an ID, and then you can dig around for your paperwork.
I don't know where my ID is.
You
just have a stack right there, maybe.
1 second.
on hers. We don't need a fire over here.
Right. Right. Okay.
Huh?
Where you going?
Away from your hot steaming water.
In the water?
Yeah.
You in the name
Huh?
of Jesus. You in the name of
You better fucking not. I swear to God, I'll fucking shoot you right in your fucking face.
Okay, sorry.
Drop the fucking pot.
All right. So that's the point where something over in the background here. Is this? I don't know what's going on. There's something weird. Is that my? Oh, that's my drink. That's funny. So what's going on here is at this point the video cuts out. That's where they shoot her, and they kill her. So there's a lot missing in the context of this video clip, even if I hadn't clipped it. So this is the one that's going around the internet. There's a lot of context missing, but that context doesn't help out the police officers. In fact, I think it makes it a whole lot worse. Now, in the show notes, you can find a link to I think it's a 36-minute video that the Springfield, Illinois police department put out. And they said, here's the body cam footage. It's on YouTube. You can go watch it if you want to see. And it shows them what happens at the very beginning of the body cam footage is that they're walking around the property and they're shining their light and they're looking and they're trying to find, is there a prowler here? Because the woman, Sonya Massey, she called the police. This woman that they just shot, she's the one that called them and said, there is a prowler around. Will you please come and check it out? And they did. They walked around and there's nothing of interest really. at the very beginning where they're walking around. They're like, okay, what's over here? What's over here? Okay, we don't see anything. They go, they knock on the door. They have to knock on the door multiple times. She comes to the door and they're like, hey, why did it take you so long? And I think they're not very pleasant. Like they're a bit rude at the very beginning. But whatever. I mean, I don't, maybe they're just annoyed because she took so long to get to the door or whatever. But she explains to them, she says, sorry, I had to get dressed. Okay, fine. No big deal. And then they invite themselves in at some point. Now, the body cam footage doesn't really show. So the officer that had the body cam footage at the beginning has at one point stepped away to take a look at something else, and then the other officer somehow finds his way into the house. Now it's unclear why he came into the house because his body cam footage was apparently not on. And so I don't know, it's not clear whether she said, "Hey, you can come in," or if he said, "Hey, do you mind if I come in?" But somehow they enter in, and then that's when they start asking for her ID. But I have two more clips that I want to play. Then I'm going to kind of cut away from that. I'm going to tell you some stories, and then we're going to kind of tie this all together. And so let's play this next clip. And so these next two clips, I did not see them floating around on the internet. So this is kind of like this missing context. And I think they're going to be very valuable as we have this conversation and we do our Monday morning quarterbacking on Wednesday. So let me put those clips up here.
Sheriff's office.
So this is when they're knocking on the door. And I want you to pay very close attention to what she's saying.
Oh, it hurt you. You called us. So what'd you hear?
Somebody outside my house.
Is this your car over here? Is this your car over here? Oh, that's not your black car in the driveway? Oh, well, we checked your yard. We walked around the whole block. We didn't see anybody. Right? We don't. We checked the whole area. There's nobody out walking around.
I know, y'all. Please, God. I'm trying to get help, y'all. But
What do you need help with?
nothing. I just, please, God. Please. I don't know what to do.
Okay. So as you can tell, she starts the interaction talking to God. Now, I'm not gonna we're not here to talk about why she was talking to God. That's just she initiates this whole entire conversation invoking some religious beliefs. You can hear her saying, please God, help me, please God. So she appears to me to be having a conversation with her creator. Okay. And we're not making fun of this. We're not at all. We're just setting the stage for later criticism of these police officers. Because remember, in the very first clip, she said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And he said, what? She's like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And he's like, you better effing not. I'll effing shoot you in the head. Right? He escalates it like crazy all of a sudden. And that clip kind of makes it sound like, is this woman crazy? Like, why would she do this? So now I want to play this third clip. And this third clip is after the shooting and after other officers and medical services, EMT arrives. And so this is another one of the officers, and he's kind of retelling somebody else kind of what happened. So let me play this clip here, and then I'm going to break away and tell you some stories after that, which I think are very, very relevant. So let's watch this.
Is there anything you think we can do for? All right. I'm not even gonna waste my med stuff then. You want to run down real quick?
Nope, not yet.
All right. House is cleared. She was the only one.
Where's he going?
No, she had a boiling water and came at me with boiling water.
You shot her?
Yeah. She said she was going to rebuke me in the name of Jesus and came out with boiling water. That's what all this is. I was standing right here.
All right.
And that's where she's landed.
Okay. So the officer then comes in and he says, look, I'm the one that shot her. The other officer is like, all right, where's the gun? And he's like, well, there is no gun. She said she had a pot of boiling water and she said she was going to rebuke me in the name of Jesus. Now, that's actually not correct. What she said was, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. not I'm going to rebuke you. Now, that may seem like a small distinction, but I think it's a very important one. So, we're going to hold that thought in your head. We're going to come back to that. I want to tell you two stories. The first story is, and I think I've told both of these before. The first one was several years ago here in Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Police Department. And I think they still do this, but they were holding an event it was a small little event called Coffee with a Cop. And so what you could do is you could just go down to a particular coffee shop that they had designated. And they said, all right, this is where we're going to be. And you just come down and you talk to an officer. And I thought, you know what? I have some time available. I'm going to go do this. So I went down and I had a chat with the officers. And one of the first things that I talked about, as I said, I asked them, I was like, why are you guys like, why do police show up so aggressively? And their answer was, well, we need to, we never know what we're walking into. It's the standard answer that they always give every single time. We never know what we're going into. This could be the last time that I put on my badge. I may not make it home today, so on and so forth. So, and I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I said, but you realize that as a citizen, when you pull me over, I don't know what I'm getting into. I don't know if it's going to be the last interaction I have with a human being alive, that if you are going to shoot me. And they said to me, they said they were starting to express some frustration that, people like to videotape the police looking for, some sort of wrongdoing or whatever, and how frustrating it is. And I was like, but you understand that they do this because we're afraid of you. And they're like, okay, well, you need to, they said citizens need to remember that most interactions with the police don't end violently. And I said, okay, fair enough. Can police remember that? And they were like, well, we never know what we're going to walk into. And I'm like, okay, so the answer is no. You want us to do something you're unwilling to do. And that was, and this was this area of disagreement that we had. And I was trying to get through their thick heads that if you are telling me that I shouldn't be so afraid, that I don't have to videotape every single interaction, which by the way, I think we should. But if you're telling me this, then maybe you should lead by example. You should show up and say, hey, Mr. Cummings, how can I help you today? Rather than rolling up and being so aggressive. Now, they're not always aggressive. Sometimes they do that, right? But there are plenty of times where police are very aggressive initially for no damn reason. And I guess I'll tell you three stories. So let me qualify that a little bit. When I was in my 20s, I worked at a fastener distribution company, and we had a heavy schedule one week. So the boss was like, "All right, we got to come in early." So I'm like, "All right, cool." So there I am driving at like 5 a.m. in the morning, and I get pulled over. I'm kind of nervous, and the first thing that happens is he flashes like practically blinds me with these lights. I'm like, "Geez." I'm like, "I can't see anything." Like, I'm just totally blind. And I'm like, "Okay," because it's like 5 a.m. in the morning. Like, the only lights up until that point were my headlights and maybe a few street lights, but otherwise it was pretty dark. So I flipped my rear view mirror, the way that you might do it when somebody's behind you so that you see kind of like the reflection of their lights in a sense, but not really the direct lights, to make it a little bit easier on your eyes. So I did that. He comes up, I have my window down, and he said, "Step out of the car slowly." And I was like, and he was like very aggressive about it. And I was like, "What?" So I'm like, "Okay." So I get out of the car slowly, and he's like, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And I'm like, "No." I said, "I'm wearing my seatbelt, driving the speed limit, just going to work." And he said, "Come here, let me show you something." We walked to the back, and we walked behind my car. So we're about 4 or 5 feet from the rear of my car. And he's like, "What do you see?" And I'm like, "My car." And he's like, "You have a smoke covered light. You have a smoke cover over your license plate." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "I can't read your license plate number." And he goes, "You got to get rid of that." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Then he's like, and I don't, I think I may be telling the story out of order, but at some point he was like, "When you flip your mirror like that, that says you don't want to be blinded." Yeah. Yes, Mr. Officer. Nobody want I mean, now I'm a 20-something guy, and I'm a smart ass. And it took everything I had not to be like say something inappropriate because I was just like, yeah, no crap. Duh. What planet are you living on? Who in their right mind wants to be blinded? Yes, I will do something to get the light out of my eyes. That is a very natural reaction. And I'm really working hard to bury my natural reaction to make fun of you for saying something entirely stupid. But I did. I bit my tongue. I was nice, you know? So all of that. And then at the end of it, he was like, well, next time I see you, you better not have that on there. Like I'm like, dude, smoke covered license. You know where I got it from? I didn't like order it from some crazy place on the internet. I went down to Walmart and I happened to be in there one day. And I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. That'd be nice on my car. Like I had like a Ford Escort or something. Like it wasn't a luxurious car. And I was just trying to make my car look just a wee bit nicer. And so I put this little smoke covered license plate over, the smoke cover over my license plate. And that was it. And then, I had to, so I, as a 20 something, I'm like, I assume that if I go to Walmart, right, just a regular everyday average store that everybody goes to thousands of times a day, that if I go there and I buy something legally, that I can legally use it. Makes sense, right? But this is the interaction that I had with an officer. He was super aggressive for no reason. Right? Like, it wasn't like he said, "Hey, man, we heard about a robbery and a shooting, and they described the car, and it looked just like yours, so we thought maybe you were the." No, I had a smoke-covered license plate, and he's acting aggressive, rolling up, standing back a little bit from behind my door, flashing the light in, barking orders at me, telling me to get out of the car slowly, and I'm like, "Oh my god, what the hell's happening?" I'm like, and all over a smoke cover. That kind of and in my opinion, you could still read the friggin' license plate well enough, you know, but whatever. So they do act aggressive. I've personally experienced it. And they act aggressive when they don't need to. So back to my story with the police, the coffee with a cop. I'm trying to express to them like, look, I've personally experienced this. And so I'm not just making it up. I'm not talking about somebody's alleged story that I wasn't there for. I'm telling you from my own experience, you guys can be aggressive. And you're telling me that I shouldn't worry because most incidents end peacefully. Now that incident ended peacefully in the context of no, there was no shooting. He didn't slam me on the pavement. There was no, but it wasn't peaceful in, verbally. He was a jerk. Um, so so this is a problem. Right? Like I experienced this 20 years ago. People experience it today. There's body cam footage of this very incident here with Sonya Massey, where she is, where they're a bit rude to her, and you can watch the full clip, the full video, and you can see where they're a bit rude, in my opinion. So let me tell you another story. This will be my final story, and then I'm going to tie this all together into the incident with Sonya Massey. Here at this house that I live in now, before my son was born and before my mother-in-law came to live with us, it was just myself and my wife. And one night she was sleeping and I was laying in bed next to her and I was like I think I was watching TV or something on my tablet. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm done now. I watched whatever show I was watching and I closed it up. And then I started just hearing something on the other side of the door. I was like, and it sounded like rustling of things. I was like, what is that? And I'm listening and I kind of get out of bed and I slowly walk up to the door and I'm listening. I'm hearing something and it sounds like somebody's out in in the other room. And so I was like, should I call the police? And I'm like, I don't really want to go out because like what happens if I go out and they've got a gun, they shoot me. Now my wife is defenseless. I mean, I'm like, right now we're at least safe because we're behind this door, and whoever might be out there, well, they're out there and we're in here. So there's a barrier right now. So we've got a little bit of safety here. And the door's locked. So they can't just waltz in. And I mean, they could still technically come in. I mean, you break the door down, all that good stuff. But there's right now at this particular moment, we're safe. So I'm like, what do I do? And I don't know, about 30 seconds pass. And so I decide I'm going to call the police because I just kept hearing the sound. I'm like, I don't know what it is. So I call the police and we have a walk in closet. So I walked into the closet because I'm trying not to disturb my wife. She's actually asleep. And I don't want to make too much noise because if there's somebody in the house, I don't want to alert them that I'm in the other room calling the police. Right. So I grab my phone and I'm talking to the police. I call them and I'm like, okay. I was like, yes, I think there might be somebody in my house. And they're like, okay. They're, like, where are you, sir? And I'm like, I'm in the bedroom, but right now I'm in the closet. And I said, I have no way of knowing. And, so I'm talking to them and then they ask me, my address and all that stuff. And so then they're like, all right, officers are on the way. I'm like, all right, cool. And so after a few minutes, and let me tell you, it probably was 5 to 7 minutes that it took from the time that the dispatcher said police are on the way till they actually got there. I don't know. I don't. I don't have any. I have no way of knowing how long it was, but it didn't. It probably wasn't very long. However, it felt like forever because I was like, they're on their way, but this potential person might still be here if if this person is here. And so I'm really nervous. And then when the officers got there, the dispatcher says, okay, sir, the officers are there. They're checking the outside of the house. And I could see some flashlights. And then she said something that really got me afraid. She said, all right, it's safe to go out and open the door. She said, what do you look like? So I can tell the officers. And then it hit me. I was like, oh my God, I just invited armed men to my house and told them there may be a stranger in the house that doesn't belong, and they don't know who I am. They don't know what I look like. What if they mistake me for the intruder? Right. And so I'm frantically, in a sense, like describing myself. I'm like, I'm short. I got glasses. I'm bald. I'm wearing a white shirt and black shorts. Like, I'm barefoot. I'm just like, I got a tattoo over here. Like, I'm describing everything I can think of so that the moment I walk out my door, my bedroom door, and they see me, they know that's the person that belongs here. Don't shoot. And then I open the door, and as soon as I walk out, the first thing I do, I head to light switches, and I'm flipping every single light switch so that they can clearly see it's me. I'm the one that hopefully the dispatcher has described to them. I open the door, and I think there were 4 of them, and they come in and they clear the house, and they don't find anybody because nobody was there because it was the damn dog. Our dog was chewing on something, some sort of bottle or something like that. And she was still chewing on it when they came in and because they're like, oh, your dog's over here chewing on something just very casually. And then it hit. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, I think that was the noise I heard. I think I heard my dog chewing on something. And then we all had a good laugh, right? And that was fine. No big deal. And it did end very, very peacefully. But why do I tell that story? Because there was that moment where I, as the homeowner, was fearful. And I haven't had a long string of negative incidents with the police. I had that one that was more annoying than anything because I'm like, you jackass. Why would you shine a light on me and think that I would not do something in response to that? Right? Why would you pull me over a license plate issue and act aggressively as if I was some sort of threat? Right? Like that was more annoying than anything, you know, but I think police seem to not think that citizens can be afraid of them. And so they don't seem to be doing anything that mitigates this. They want us to believe, hey, most incidents or most interactions, they resolve peacefully. Okay, cool. That's probably true. I mean, how many times does an officer pull somebody over for a speeding ticket and, there's no altercation? Like probably thousands and thousands of times every few hours, right? Like, it happens a lot all over the US. How many times do they show up to somebody's house for some reason and it doesn't end in altercation? Thousands and thousands of times, right? And so they're probably correct in this, you know, by the numbers. However, people are bad at statistics. Nobody's like, well, statistically, I'm not going to be harmed by the police. No, what we do is we say, man, I heard that one story where they shot that dude and he seemed to be doing nothing. And then the officer got in trouble. So what if that happens to me? That's how people think. And they think that about everything, not just police, right? This is a very standard human response. All right, let's tie this into Sonya Massey's story. So the very first clip shows after they've entered the house. And they seem to be relatively um like they're kind of joking with her. They're like, "Oh, why do you need, but they're asking for her ID. Now, first they asked her name, and she at one point says, I think she does say Sonya Massey, I believe. And then they want ID. Now, I am having a little trouble remembering, but I'm pretty certain that when the police came to my house, they didn't ask for my ID. They might have, but I don't think they did. I don't recall them asking for my ID. And so, like, this seems to me that they already made a mistake, one, by going in the house. She called about a prowler outside. Why do you need to go in? Hey, ma'am, please. Hi, sir. How are you doing? Hey, you called about a prowler? Yes. Okay, well, we couldn't find one. Anything else we can help you with? No. Okay, we're going to let you go unless there's something else that you need. Right now, again, we don't know how they ended up in the house. Maybe she asked them to come in the house. I don't know. Okay. But from my perspective, it seems like they might have invited themselves in the house. And then I don't really understand what value is there in getting her ID. If you don't need to be in the house, don't go in. If you don't absolutely have to have an ID, then don't ask for it. Do the bare minimum that you need to do to resolve the situation and then leave. Period. This is why I think that quote is perfect. The bureaucrats with guns, right? Then, and this is the crux of the story, which I think is very, very important. She goes over, she's got a pot of boiling water. It's unclear why she's boiling water. And I think this is at like 1 a.m. or something like that. But whatever. Like I've cooked food in, 1 a.m. So that's not really out of the ordinary necessarily. Um, So she goes over to the pot of boiling water and then she walks over. Now, and I'm going to pull this up and just kind of freeze frame it here real quick because I think there's a value in just kind of taking a look at this a little bit more closely. So give me a second. Let me pull this back up. Let's see here. We're going to cut over here. We're going to bring this up. So let's move this on over. So we're going to move over. Okay, so here we are. So she's at what appears to be the sink at this particular moment, right? And then behind her, over to where I'm looking to the left, you can see that's the stove. And so there's a barrier now. So there's a barrier right here where there's this counter, and they're on the other side of the barrier. Now she could technically throw the pot of boiling water over the barrier, but they're a fair distance that they could probably avoid that quite easily. And so there's no reason. Now, the catch that the thing that I caught was that she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." And he's like, that's when he all of a sudden just escalates it. Now, I don't know if these men have ever been to church, but this is not an uncommon thing for people to say. And it was clear from the very beginning that she was a religious woman invoking religious conversation talk. I'm not sure how you would properly describe that, but she's invoking her religious beliefs from the very beginning. Because at the clip, the second clip I play, where they knock on the door, she opens it. She's like, "God, please help me. God, please help me." Right. So it's clear that she's a religious woman of some variant, and this plays a role in her life. And then she says, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." Now, he later says, she said, "I will rebuke you," or something. "I'm going to rebuke you." It's not what she said. She said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." For people who are religious, like say evangelicals and whatnot, This is not necessarily an uncommon thing. This happens all the time. People speak out loud when they're invoking their religious beliefs. Dear Lord, please help me, right? Dear Lord, rebuke Satan right now, right? Now, I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying this is common. This is not out of the ordinary. And I don't think she was making a threat. But unfortunately, they went from I rebuke you in the name of Jesus to I will shoot you in like a second. And he's like, I'll shoot you in the head. And then she puts her hand, she appears to put her hands up, and then she's kind of ducking for cover, whatever. And she's like, I'm sorry. Like, she gives all indication that she's not a threat from my perspective. Now, I wasn't there. I know a lot of people say, well, DL, you weren't there. What if you were? Like, you're right. I wasn't there. And I don't think I have to be there because I think the video tells us quite a bit. I think that the officers misunderstood what she was saying and then immediately resorted to violence. That's what they did. And they killed the woman because she said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And they did it because I believe as a society, we keep allowing this idea that I never know what's going to happen today when I put on this badge. We accept this, we tolerate this idea that, well, I never know what I'm walking into. Everything that I walk into could be a threat. Well, okay. That's fine if that's what you want to believe, but don't come at me and tell me as a citizen I shouldn't equally believe that as well. Because if you think that you're walking into a threat every single time and you're ready to draw your firearm and just start blasting people away, then don't be surprised and don't be angry when I want to videotape you all the time, when maybe I have a certain amount of distrust in the interactions and I hold you heavily accountable because you walked into a situation thinking you may not make it out. You might have to shoot your way out. And since that's the attitude that you started with, then I'm going to hold you even more accountable for everything because you walked in with the idea that you're ready to shoot. You walked in at an escalated, you came in escalated. And the woman called about a prowler. At no time should a citizen who is innocent call the police for a prowler and end up dead because the police shot them. Unless, of course, the person actually was a threat. But that's not what happened here. And by the way, the officer in question, his name is Officer Grayson. He has since been charged with murder. I agree. Sorry, guys. Stop shooting people. Stop going into situations with an escalated perspective. Start believing your own medicine. If you're going to tell me that most incidents end peacefully, then act like it yourself. And then, as we saw there, you had a barrier. You could have the guy backs up and she's like, what are you backing up like that for? And he's like, I'm getting away from the pot of boiling water. Right now, it's unclear why he thought that just holding the pot of boiling water, because I believe they invited her to go and take care of it. Right. Because he said something like, we don't need the house burning down or something like that. So he invited her to go and take care of it. And then he's like, well, I'm getting back because you got a pot of boiling water. Well, yeah, that's what it was. She had this pot of boiling water. She didn't appear to be doing anything with it. Then they invite her to go over and take care of it. And then she walks over to the sink. And then she says something that they misinterpret and they think, oh my God, you're about to throw this pot of boiling water. And the woman's a tiny woman. She's an older woman. She's tiny. I mean, it's not like, we're not talking about somebody like me who's 46. I still got some good strength to me. And, maybe I got a pot of boiling water, which I could launch across the room, across the house. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a tiny little woman, right? They misread so many things out of this situation. And I get it. On Monday morning quarterbacking, but that's too bad. And why is it too bad? because I'm tired of seeing stories like this. Now, let me point out something. In episode 298, which is in the show notes, I've linked it and you can go see it. Um, I titled that Florida Loves a Police State. Now, Florida is not Illinois. There's differences there, of course. But one of the things that, a lot of states will do what other states do, right? Like they pass legislation here, another state will be like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. We should do that too, right? And so in episode 298, I criticized House Bill 601, which was a bill that basically neutered citizen review boards. Because according to DeSantis, we don't do that here, right? I think I think that was the comment he made regarding Florida. And so my criticism in that episode was that we keep passing legislation here in Florida that's to the benefit of the police. And I'm like, well, when are we going to start passing legislation that's to the benefit of the citizens? The Sonya Masseys of the world who get shot. Now, I mean, I get it. He's going to be charged with murder, and he should be, right? And he should go to jail for this. And too bad, so sad, Officer Grayson. But what about stopping? The reason that we pass this legislation is to like prevent stuff. It's another argument to be had some other time. But okay, fine. When are we going to pass legislation that says, you know what? Citizens deserve to be able to call the police for a prowler, act a little bit weird, and not get shot. When do we have legislation for that says, or how about we just not pass legislation that limits the citizenry from being critical? Because part of DeSantis's criticism was he was like, well, you get these citizen boards in some cities, they're full of activists. And so what? How about this? How about you don't have anything to worry about if you're not doing anything wrong? You know how you're always saying, I'm just doing my job? Well, if you're just doing your job and you're doing it properly, you have nothing to worry about. And citizens can have a board where they have direct access to all the information to review. And it's not like they have authority, right? Citizen review boards, they get to make recommendations, and they can basically, they basically can make more noise more officially. That's really what it amounts to, right? But they could make a recommendation and say, hey, this officer needs to be fired. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? But they can say that. It just happens to be more official than a lowly podcaster such as myself, right? And as a podcaster, I have to go through a little bit more effort to get a hold of this information. So it just turns out that the police put this the body cam footage out on YouTube in a manner, in a time frame that I could access it and discuss this topic while the topic is of national interest right now. But if I was a citizen review board, if I was on a review board, I might have access to information more easily and more quickly than, say, some podcaster in some city, right? Like that information might get to me a little bit more quickly to review, and we could make a more official decision. So, and I'm not trying to use this to criticize Florida, because I don't know what the laws are in Illinois. So if you're from Illinois, hopefully your governor hasn't ended citizen review boards. Hopefully they haven't passed legislation that keeps benefiting officers and allowing officers to get themselves into these positions. Like, I don't know, maybe just make a bill, write a bill that says officers have to have better training. Like, clearly the training that they have is insufficient because there's too many shootings. There are too many shootings where an officer has shot somebody that didn't need to be shot. Now, look, I said earlier, I said, I'm not ACAB, right? I'm not the kind of person that's like, all cops are bastards. I hate them. Don't ever come to my house. Well, they're a volunteer force. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate that they're willing to go out there and maybe catch the bank robber who just shot the teller, right? I don't think people do bank robberies so much anymore. Maybe they do. I don't know. But I appreciate that somebody says, you know what? I'm willing to put my life on the line, potentially put my life on the line, or at least go and just enforce the law. Hey, one neighbor is mad at another neighbor and they called the police. I'm willing to go over there and kind of be this mediator for them and help resolve this dispute and hopefully hopefully resolve it so that everything ends peacefully and remains peacefully, right? Like I appreciate that. And I don't have an issue with that. But I do have an issue with seeing story after story after story where they've shot somebody, killed them, and that person, there was no reason to. And when I look back and I hear them say, well, we never know what we're walking into. And then when I evaluate from my own personal experience where I've had aggressive police officers, um, then it says to me that something isn't right, that we need to make some changes. There is no reason that police should not be generally thought of as highly as firefighters. I mean, maybe not quite as high. I mean, firefighters, they're not out there trying to bust people and stuff like that. So it's a little different dynamic there. But like most people love firefighters and for good reason. You know, Firefighter comes to my home and I'm like, oh, my child is upstairs. Can you please go? And they'll rush in to go and get him. Not always, but frequently, right? Like they're willing to do this. They put their lives on the line for people. And so we tend to love firefighters. The same thing could be mostly true about police. I mean, there's always going to be like, why'd you pull me over? Oh, geez, I was just going 7 over the speed limit and you pull me over. Good Lord, what are you at? You don't have you need to meet your quota, right? So there will always be some of that. And there will always be some people that just don't like, the officers. And there will always be interactions that are unpleasant. But if we could dial it down from the police end, when they're walking into situations so they don't act like every situation is their last moment, we could dial it down where they start learning to recognize and say, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but from the very beginning, this woman was expressing religious, views out loud, and she hasn't been a threat so far. And we've invited her to go and take care of this pot of boiling water. And there's a barrier between her and us. Maybe we don't need to quickly rush to shoot people. And we can just say, hey, you know, stay on that side of the counter. If you come on the other side of the counter with that pot of boiling water, we're going to that point assume you are trying to threaten us. But if you stay on the other side of that pot of boiling water, I'm sorry, on the other side of that counter with your pot of boiling water, please put it down. You're making us a little nervous. We don't want this to escalate any further. Right? And she did say, "I'm sorry." They could have immediately been like, "All right, cool. Let's dial this down. Let's de-escalate." But they didn't. They leaped to shoot. And so as far as I'm concerned, right to jail. How's that meme go? Right to jail. Period. So that's my take on this situation. Go ahead and watch the full video yourself. It's like 36 minutes or not, whatever, but it's there. You can take a look at it. From my perspective, I think they were a little bit aggressive with her. Nothing too crazy, but a little bit aggressive. And I think that at the end of the day, there was absolutely zero need to shoot this woman. And I'm glad that they had the body cam on so that we could talk about this. And hopefully if we see enough body cam footage, hopefully we already have, but hopefully we will start looking at legislation that says, all right, something needs to change, whatever it may be, but something needs to change so that we can stop shooting innocent people. All right, that's my show for today, folks. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative and inspiring. Inspiring in the sense that maybe you call up your representatives and say, hey, how about some legislation to change how policing is done? Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern, for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel. You can go to youtube.libertydad.com. You can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. And last but not least, I want you to remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.